Don't talk to me here anymore.
Why can't you talk for a minute?
I can't talk for a minute, honey. I'm gonna have to go. Everything's hectic here.
As a doctor, I've been working in clinics for the underserved for years, and I see so many people with severe mental illness who are disconnected from their families. It makes me have to think, why is it that I'm not more connected to my dad?
These will dry. Oh, you want to wear these? Let's see how what they're.
They're not wet.
Okay.
They're just cold.
Cold, okay.
Recently, this question has been weighing on me more because my son is asking about his grandpa. And what do I tell him? I know so little about the past. I do know that my parents met as students at UC Berkeley, where my dad was in the English graduate department. He was outgoing, loved poetry, and was writing a novel. Then my dad's symptoms of paranoid schizophrenia took over, and within months of my birth, my mom left him. My dad was in and out of my life. Often he'd show up in a psychotic state at my doorstep or school, crying and yelling for me. It just got to be incredibly upsetting seeing Dad in this state. And as I got older, so upsetting that the system made it impossible to get him treatment, like the policies that prevented him from getting the hospital care I knew he so desperately needed. So 10 years ago I became unlisted in the phone book, hoping Dad wouldn't come searching for me. With Chase asking about his grandpa, it's bringing up all my conflicted feelings about how I've been handling things, hiding from Dad, rarely visiting him. I'm thinking more about what it means to be in a family, and I feel this pull to reconnect with my dad. He's on a newer medicine, and maybe now things can be different. I'm scared, though, of what can happen with his illness, but I want to try to have a relationship with him. I've decided to read my dad's novel, a story based on his own life. I've had it for years, and I tried to read it before. He wrote it when his illness was first starting, and it's hard to follow. But now I think it might hold clues to his past. There are many examples of strings that serve disguised intents. The fishhook at the end of the line, the explosive at the end of a wire fuse, the handcuff at the end of a chain. A growing boy is like a ball of string that is being saved piece by piece. But as with the spider's web, a strong fly can come along and in an instant tear it to shreds. Becoming more involved with Dad means facing my mom, and that's hard. All my life she's not like Dad, but when I was a teenager she decided she didn't want me to see him anymore. And since then has got mad if I just mention his name. saying only that she didn't want to be reminded of the nightmare of her past. I was hoping, after all these years, she might open up. But when I tell her my plans, she gets angry and says she wants no part of them, including this film. My mom's anger caused me to compartmentalize my relationship with Dad. But now I'm beginning to realize how little I've talked to anyone about him. Did I talk much about my dad?
No, not at all. You once said, and like in about 5 minutes gave this very clinical summary.
I'm headed to see Dad and feeling pretty nervous. For 5 years he's been living in Los Angeles at Step Up, a supportive housing complex for people with mental illness. When I last saw him a couple of years ago, he was doing well, but I'm having this familiar fear, not knowing how he'd be when I went to meet him. On the good days, we'd ride his scooter around and play chess. But on the bad days, he'd be shaking, pacing frantically, and yelling about how the CIA or police were after him.
Hi, sweetie.
Hi.
I missed you. You look great.
Thanks.
It's just you, me, and the president.
Okay, but do you like him?
Yeah, I like him.
You've never been a Republican.
Well, I changed my registration after Al Gore hired the wrong lawyers in Florida.
Oh, okay. This is when I came a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
Chase was just a few months old.
There are your pictures from where Tessa came along.
And does your refrigerator still only have Diet Coke?
Yeah, there's what my refrigerator looks like.
I guess.
I don't read
just want to pull out your novel for 1 sec. Is this it?
No, this isn't. I think it's a great book. Nobody understands it, though. It's surrealistic.
Uh-huh.
It's like a Salvador Dali painting.
Yeah.
Whenever I think of the despicable stink in the world, I wince and remember the unfortunate founding of an odd monastery which held in casks the corpses of all who were once loved by the monster of my imagination, the incurable Duncan Abram.
Soon I'm in my old role of asking Dad about his medicine.
Does he say to try an antidepressant?
No, he doesn't say to try it.
Okay, he says you're doing okay.
He says ideally somebody who is mentally ill, who makes progress toward being cured, doesn't have to be on medication. So he's considering lowering my dosage to 20 milligrams.
Gee, that scares me.
I only see him once a month.
But you're not going to go off it.
But I'm not going to go off it, though. That scares you.
As far back as I can remember, Dad's mom would beg me to get him to take his medicines. I felt torn. In Berkeley in the 60s and 70s, all the adults I knew questioned everything mainstream, so I'd hear how medicines were bad. Then Dad would upset me saying how the medicines affected him sexually. Off his medicines, Dad could be so out of control, so I did want him to take them. I'd bring it up all the time, but it always felt useless.
You don't think that you have schizophrenia?
No, I don't think I do. Yeah, really.
Even though you've had all these breakdowns?
Yeah, well, my breakdowns have been partially internal, partially external. Because
I asked Dad about a time when I was a teenager, and he came searching for me at my home.
Something happened in Oakland where you came and were yelling outside or something.
Yeah, that was, your mother called the police.
Uh-huh. Did I see you after that?
Oh, yeah, I always managed to escape. I won all the chess games I had to win to get out.
And you think that was...
Santa Rita, pretty Rita, meet her maid.
That was like 25 years ago.
That was 25 years ago.
Did I see you all the way through graduation of high school?
Yeah, but I didn't go to your graduation because you didn't invite me.
Uh-huh.
I didn't go to your graduation from Cornell either because you didn't invite me. I didn't go to graduation from Stanford Medical School because you didn't invite me. I didn't go to your wedding because you didn't invite me.
Well, it was hard.
What does an invitation look like?
Well, it was hard for it was hard because my mother has a hard time with that.
You were out of touch. You were incognito many times in your life.
Uh-huh.
I always prayed to God for you. I'd look up at the stars. I say, Delaney is a little star up there, and so is Bonnie. And they blink and twinkle, and how I wonder how they are.
When Dad tells me that I never invited him to things, I feel this wall go up, and I can tell it's holding back the main feeling I grew up with, guilt. Years of Dad telling me that only I could save him. I wasn't home that particular time my dad came screaming for me. The time my mom called the police and decided she didn't want me to see him anymore. I don't remember how I felt when this happened, but in college I wanted to have more contact with my dad, and I started to write to him. When my mom came to my graduation, she found a stack of his letters and became infuriated. So for me, it was never a question of whether my dad would be coming to my graduations or to my wedding, but there is someone who just recently had to consider all this, and that's his other daughter. After my parents divorced, my dad married another woman he met at UC Berkeley. She got pregnant, but because of his upsetting behaviors, she left him and raised their daughter Bonnie on the East Coast. I've rarely met Bonnie. She recently got married and is a physician's assistant in LA.
I'm not taking care of this man, but I don't want to. I don't feel it's my responsibility. When I was young, his letters would say things about my stepdad being a pig and all the pigs and Nazis that lived in my town, and he would call my grandmother the Wicked Witch. I remember writing a book, I Want My Daddy, but he was always mean, so my mom didn't let me talk to him. He asked me if he could walk me down the aisle, if he could give me away. Ugh. Gosh, I just felt so bad. No. As I was walking down the aisle, and I was, of course, walking by myself. And here comes this hand right in front of me as I'm walking. And I had to push it out of my way, and it was my father. I guess he was doing like a high five or something. Like, give me 5. I actually had the photographer zoom and crop him out of some of the pictures.
My dad says the wedding was great, but somehow I'm left feeling sad for him and Bonnie. I think about when I was a young girl meeting him at cafes, and he'd be talking so fast he'd be spitting and ranting about all the professors being out to get him. And angry at people, but never angry at me. When he was in these states, I'd feel so embarrassed when my friends saw us, and hated that there was nothing I could do to calm him.
This is me at the chess tournament where I won first prize.
You did? Where? Here?
Yeah, this was a long time ago.
Uh-huh. How many people did you beat?
About 8.
Uh-huh.
No.
That? I'll just lose, that's all. Okay, so when you were in...
Now watch out, this is a trick move. Watch out, see what the other guy is threatening.
Oh, this one.
See that? Checkmate.
Oh, that was so quick. But that was 3 moves you won, huh? Was I better when I was younger? I think so.
Yeah, you were better when you were younger, because you got your mind on your children and Peter.
I'm going to see family that is more involved with my dad. First, his nephew.
He'll call here at least once a day. I've bailed him out of jail before. I've, picked him up off the street before. It would sometimes get to the point where it's like, if you're not going to take your meds, I don't want to talk to you. Mm-hmm. Would I like to not have to deal with it? Sure. I wish he was an adult that was able to take care of himself. He's my uncle. He's, 25 years my senior, and he's the child.
You want it if we find it?
My dad's sister is also a main support to him.
Have you at times in your life disconnected from him?
When Mother was alive, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Then she started to weaken. I'll do all this stuff and I'll do all this stuff, but no, he can't come stay with me. And she foisted him off on me. And we had him in the house a few times when the kids were little, and it was pretty... We'd have to get him back out. Now, instead of the raving, screaming, anger stuff of when he was young, now it's more the paranoia that comes over, where he is just panicked. Example, one of the last ones he had, he was sure you were dead. He was totally hysterical. He was ready. You got to get the newspaper. We got to get the newspaper. It's in the newspaper.
I'm glad things went so well with Dad. I can't believe how much better he seems. Calmer, more rational. But still I'm feeling this distance. And it makes me want to know more about him.
He looked like the golden boy. He just read the stuff once and was an A student. High school, he was extremely popular, very good looking, had all the girlfriends.
He was a graduate student in English, and he was a master of the English language. That's something that impressed me, at the time. He had traveled. He seemed to have a variety of friends.
Sometime in college is when he had his first breakdown.
I know so little about those early years of my dad's illness. My mom only tells me that when she became pregnant with me, they were evicted 5 times because of my dad's behaviors, like climbing up telephone poles and yelling at people. When my mom left my dad, he was hospitalized at the same hospital complex I did part of my training. And it's only now that with my dad's permission, I get his chart. He was hospitalized for 7 months, 6 months after I was born. He has always refused to take medications unless he felt symptomatically uncomfortable. Richard's characteristic mode of coping involves preoccupation with an unpublished novel that he has been writing for several years. Born wide-eyed and magnificent, Duncan was committed in his 6th and 20th year to a cross between a madhouse and a monastery, which the inmates called the Cathedral. Many designations have been used in classifying those people that live and work at the Cathedral. They are neither prisoners nor free agents. Individuality is inscrutably lost. It vanishes as silently as the insects of the night. I keep thinking about how well Dad's doing, but then I start worrying. What if he goes into a crisis? In medical school, my dad showed up twice, 400 miles from his residence, off his medicine, acting psychotic, and saying he didn't want treatment. When I took him to hospitals, they said he didn't meet the legal criteria for getting care against his will. Unless he told the doctors that he had a plan to kill himself or somebody else, I couldn't make him go into a hospital. There I was, a 26-year-old student with an out-of-control, mentally unstable father, and no way to get him the help that he so urgently needed. But where did this criteria come from? I learned that my congressman is a psychiatrist and knows more about this.
The mid-'60s, when Ronald Reagan was governor of California, was a perfect storm in terms of what could go wrong in the mental health system. On the one hand, they were looking to cut the budget. They didn't believe in public services. On the other hand, you had civil libertarians who saw that locking people up in these hospitals, especially because we now had medications that could treat them as outpatients, it wasn't in the patient's best interest. So that the civil libertarians said, let's do everything to get people out of the mental hospitals. And Reagan's budget cutters came along and said, let's get everything we can to get patients out of the mental hospitals. And in the process, they created a process that made it almost impossible to get somebody into the mental hospital.
I discovered that the laws in most states are just as restrictive. With newer treatments, there is, fortunately, less need to hospitalize people with mental illness. But if someone does need hospitalization, there's a major shortage of beds for psychiatric care. Since 1960, more than 90% of publicly funded beds have been eliminated. The promise from the politicians of the 60s was to put the money saved from closing hospitals into community care. But it never happened.
Once they closed the doors and put the people out on the streets, the money never went to the community mental health centers. What that did was just gradually shift this population into the jails.
From somewhere in the higher echelon of the government, the seizure had begun. Each resident of the cathedral was again on his own. Duncan carried a plaid suitcase which contained shirts, underwear, and poems. He entered San Francisco. The swoosh and noise of the cars and trucks reminded him of the mortal hurry which had caused him to seek refuge in the cathedral.
Okay, because we can't go up there? Okay, we'll just come down. Hi. How are you?
I'm fine, how are you? You're looking great. I went to London, and I went to a nightclub called Whiskey A Go-Go, and I got involved with an English girl.
Oh,
she was about my age.
Oh, wait, look, is this it when you went?
Yeah, that's somewhere in Europe. Her famous last words to me were, "What if I get pregnant?" And sure enough, I got a letter from London telling me that her daughter's name was Christine, and that was many, 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 many years ago. And the last time I saw her was on the BBC. They televised her reading a letter about the Falklands War.
Do I have another half-sister? As much as I want to know Dad better, I'm seeing how much I may never know. As a kid, I didn't know what delusions were, just that nothing Dad ever said came true. So I stopped believing what he told me. We'd roam college campuses, and he'd say how he was just about to become a college professor, or how all the professors were out to get him. I've wondered if his constant need to see me was part of his delusions. Like those times he came shouting for me on my schoolyard. And how when I was 15 he did this at my high school. I was in class, but my friends told me how out of control he was. I felt such shame.
Okay, now we're going to take my medication.
When was the last time you were off of them?
When I was in San Jose.
When you came to see me?
When
That was it? That was the last time?
Yeah.
So what am I so worried about?
Well, you know, it curbs your libido.
No, I mean, what am I worried about? I shouldn't be worried that you're not going to not take your medicines.
Because it's not a cure-all. It doesn't help you when you get depressed or lonely or feel isolated. I'd like to move away to Europe or someplace like that, so I don't have to take medication, and I don't have to go see a doctor every 2 weeks and things like that.
It must be hard to always have to take medicine.
Yeah, honey, I hope it doesn't happen to you. How's Peter doing?
It's not going to happen
Is
to
he
me.
finding a cure for tuberculosis? You know, the joke is he's going to win the Nobel Peace Prize, and I'd kill to win the Nobel Peace Prize.
Is that your joke? You've got a lot of them.
Yeah.
So, Dad, this is what's called a mental health advance directive. It's for you to right now, during a time when you're doing really well, to have control.
Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Take your protein tablets and put your helmet on.
Signs or behaviors that let people know you're getting worse? Like for me to know if you were getting worse?
For better or for worse? That's one thing your mother didn't believe in.
Okay, this is about preferences regarding hospitalizations.
Yeah, there's only one hospital I want to go to.
Okay, that's in here. Which one is that?
It's Century City Hospital.
They closed down.
Century City closed down?
Yeah. I looked into it because that's where you were hospitalized 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And they closed down.
Cedars-Sinai still open?
Yeah.
I don't know why we're doing this, honey. I'm not going to the hospital.
But remember, I'm a doctor. This is kind of like how I think about things, is how to prevent things and how to kind of write down what you want.
When it rains,
Okay. When it rains?
when it rains and you're homeless,
Okay.
then you want to go in to the hospital.
How about if you're hearing voices or having paranoid thoughts?
Then you turn on the radio. Somebody like you or Bonnie or Michael told me I should go into the hospital, and I would trust your decision.
Okay. I'm gonna type this stuff up because it's kind of messy right now.
I don't want a copy of that,
Why?
because I'm going to save you the trouble of sending me something in the mail like that.
What if I'm not here? This will tell them what you need.
No, that won't tell them anything. They don't follow those forms. They follow their own forms.
Where are you going?
I'm going to stand up.
Okay. To help you stay safe?
No.
Okay.
Just mark no for all of them.
Take care of your pets, no. Take care of your home, no. Notify your employer, no.
No.
Advocate for your job security,
No.
Transfer you to the doctor,
No.
Remind you to take your medicines.
No.
Why not?
Because I always remember.
Okay.
Once again, I'm acting like a doctor, but I'm feeling like I did as a child. Frustrated, useless. I don't want to be Dad's doctor anymore. I want to try to just be with him.
Not changing my mind.
We're headed to the horse races, a place my dad would take me a lot. I always felt out of place, but I liked seeing my dad happy.
No tray.
It's so easy. When somebody waiting
I
in
know,
line,
okay.
it goes to something like
Dad,
that.
I've been living my life for years. No one will take
I
anything.
know, but you're not as paranoid as I am about thieves.
Okay, I'm just going to keep my hand
I
like
got
this.
beaten up and robbed, and
I have this,
the
like...
wallet got taken.
When did you get beaten up and robbed?
Oh, a couple of years ago. Friendly gal.
Place 8, pick 6. I got you. Daily Double and the win for 3.
seconds. So what you do back to fourth now. Finally noses on the outside, then they come back to major look and rusty nail at the rail of 7 also. They run to the half mile.
Oh, come on, Phil. Come on, Phil. Yeah.
No, we don't want 2.
Oh, boo.
You wanted 3 and 1. You got 3, 2, 1.
Oh. When I was a kid, was I an affectionate kid?
You were a young lady.
But were we affectionate? Like hold hands? I don't know.
No, we never did anything like that.
I'm feeling less worried about the future, and I'm enjoying my time with my dad. Recently, I gave him all my contact information, and I've started looking for housing in case he comes to Seattle. But the lack of housing for people with mental illness is staggering. There are such long wait lists for the few group homes and apartment units, and even longer wait lists for supportive housing, like what my dad has now at Step Up, where there's on-site services like social workers, psychiatrists, support groups, and more. It's this type of housing, I'm convinced, which has made such a difference for my dad. He was on a wait list for 4 years to get into Step Up.
We have had this battle in our society always between what is individual responsibility and what is collective responsibility. We have no trouble making the decision about fire departments. Fire departments aren't an individual responsibility, they're a collective responsibility. Mental health clearly is an individual issue. That's your problem. It's your religion, or it's your lack of faith, or the food you're eating, or whatever you're doing, or what you're smoking, dope, or what, we put it all on the individual and say that the society has no responsibility for it.
I've been thinking about what I'd tell myself in the past when I was cut off from Dad, like that others could care for him better than I could, unburdened by the pain of the past. I alleviated my guilt by working in public clinics, helping other mental health patients. But then I saw firsthand how underfunded public health clinics are.
Okay.
And how so many people, like my dad, go without the mental health care that they so very much need. In medical school, I learned that with schizophrenia, the brain chemical levels are measurably abnormal. And imaging studies show that brain activity and anatomy can be abnormal. But medical school didn't teach me what causes these abnormalities. Leslie suspects my dad used LSD and that it affected him.
You really see it as a biological problem that was triggered by the LSD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were deep into LSD, which was not unusual at that time. I thought it was very funny and fun and hip.
Just haven't talked about it.
I think mental illness is from the encounters you have in the world where you knock your head against a wall and nobody knocks back.
Did that happen to you?
Yeah.
Because your father wasn't around, or what?
Yeah, my parents divorced when I was 12. I told Peter to
My dad changes the subject, but I know that the divorce was hard on him. His father cut him out of his life, and his mother was a constant worrier. But would his family environment or possible drug use have caused the illness? Research hasn't shown that to be true. Research has shown a large genetic component. My risk of getting schizophrenia was 10 times more than my friends. I never let myself think about that. Instead, I thought knowledge would keep it away. I was determined to learn all about Dad's illness, such as how it's common to have delusions or hear voices, but rare to have visual hallucinations. And that a major problem with schizophrenia is that it prevents nearly half of people with it from understanding that they have it. And I learned things I already knew, that it wasn't multiple personalities. Dad was always Dad.
I thought all right, he has problems, but, you know, if we love each other, love will conquer all, and that his illness would just kind of go away. But obviously that didn't happen.
What is love? Let us not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love that conquers when it concubines. No, 'tis an ever-moving force, one that does transcend with the transcender. Love's not time's fool, though to his rosy sickle's compass come, love bears it out, even to the edge of doom.
I'm bringing Chase to see his grandpa. It's been 3 years since they last met. Chase is excited to show his grandpa his chess trophy.
How are you? It's Grandpa, your old amigo from Mexico, or wherever I'm from. Hi, sweetheart.
How are you doing?
We got a present for you.
I won this from a tournament.
Yeah, I got a chess trophy right over there where the flags are. 2004 Bryant Fall Classic. 19th place. 19 is a lucky number. I'll trade you a book for this trophy. No, you castled wrong. Do you want to call it a draw now that you have your chess set?
Well, that was a quick game.
Well, I'm not backing out. Can I come play with you in Seattle, where you have a table and everything's fine? Delaney, I won't play chess with Chase for much longer. He's a very good player, but he's too conservative.
Watch where you're walking. You're going to walk in there.
Jazz.
There's a corn. Let's go get a corn.
Watching my dad with Chase makes me think of my childhood, when Dad was so unpredictable. I feel happy for Chase, that he gets to see his grandpa in such a peaceful state. And I feel lucky that I get to see them together, having the good times I always wished for. I discover a former classmate of my dad's, who's been a child psychologist for 35 years.
Yeah, and that's Oscar. Yeah.
Look at the other room. I'm not one of your clients. I'm too old.
No, you're home free. I'm off duty.
Yeah, I met Lizzie. There were times when I was so poor and homeless that I had no hope at all. Well,
what diagnosis you have?
No, I've been diagnosed as being paranoid.
Uh-huh.
And that means I don't go out by myself at night, and I don't go into crowded situations. I hardly ever go to a movie. I never would go to anything like the Republican National Convention.
Maybe a lot of unpredictability.
And I get afraid easily.
Yeah. So without the medication, you get really, really scared.
Or sometimes I get violent.
Okay.
I walk away from fights now.
Yeah.
I used to get into fights.
You used to get into them? So you'd throw blows with people?
Yeah, those were the boxing days.
Yeah. It may be a surprise to you that Delaney is doing this. From what she said to me, that she didn't have any contact with you for an extended period of time, and then decided that she wanted to. My view, from my perspective as to why, is that you're her dad.
No, it goes deeper than that, no.
Yeah?
She wants to find out who she is. She's on an identity search.
Talk some more about that. What do you suppose is
her
missing?
Mother and I were cats and dogs. She was the cat and I was the dog. And you know what cats and dogs do when they get together?
Fight.
Yeah.
And you guys fought a lot.
A lot.
Is that when you had the mean streak?
Yeah.
Is that when you were mean?
I never hit her, but I hit other guys. And Delaney grew up with that going on in her life, and when she was just a small little girl, she heard the arguments and the fights, and she wanted to know who she was as separate from her mother or her father.
Do you see many children then of chronically mentally ill then?
Yes. When kids grow up in an environment where they do not get obtain a secure attachment, where the nurturing people are unpredictable, that triggers an autonomic nervous system response, and the brain is always on guard and vigilant because it never knows what's going to happen.
People say that I'm pretty have like thick layered skin in terms of I'm always asking the questions and pretty like survivalist, I guess.
You are in survival mode. We all develop ways of surviving. Okay? And the thick skin, that is what you've been able to do.
One thing that I'm realizing is that I didn't really bond with my father.
Okay, he's your dad, and there hasn't been an attachment. There hasn't been an emotional bonding and a connection, and that leaves a hole in our souls.
Is that hard for you to hear, that I wasn't that attached?
No, it's not hard for me to hear. I did my best, honey. I couldn't do any more than I did.
Yeah, and that is actually true. You didn't know what you could do to make it different. Each time that you saw your dad, there would be this hope, well, maybe it'll be different. And then you'd be incredibly disappointed when it would be kind of the same, or something untoward would happen or unpredictable. But similarly, your dad would hope that it would be different, and not having the tools and not understanding what was going on within him, he was unable to do anything different.
I was doing a poem. The sea is calm tonight. The sun is going down. It's not fortune I seek. It's being renowned.
The ice cream are huge. No, you're going to go to dinner. Well, we'll go get a treat, a little one over here.
This is my chess set and my checkbook.
Wow. Well, tell us a little bit more about it.
And I really like it.
Oh, how cool.
Let's see.
Okay, questions for Chase about his check step.
Where'd you get it? From my grandpa.
Okay, thank you, Chase.
I don't want to drop dead like my grandfather did. I want to see you again, and I want to see Chase and Tessa.
My dad's been calling a lot recently, and I'm trying not to worry too much. But I find I keep thinking about him.
Well, I feel lonely and confined, and if I went into the UCLA psychiatric ward, they don't let you smoke. Maybe I could quit smoking. And Leslie won't have anything to do with me. He said, if you and Peter could find me a place in Seattle, he would help me pack and drive me to the airport. I had a vision. I'm going to be an apostle for Jesus Christ.
I discovered that a lot of things are contributing to Dad's anxiety. His therapist, Mandy, and his psychiatrist have both just left Step Up. And most concerning, His sister has been diagnosed with an aggressive cancer and is awaiting surgery. Now I learn that Dad is having delusions that his other daughter Bonnie is gravely ill. He tells me he wants to be hospitalized.
Sweetheart, it's emergency. Don't call me anymore here. I need to relax at Sinai.
But Dad, I just want you to tell you that Bonnie's fine.
Don't talk to me here anymore.
Why?
Oh?
Dad, why can't you talk for a minute?
I can't talk for a minute, honey. I'm gonna have to go. Everything's hectic here. I'll talk to you if and when I get to Cedar Sinai. Okay, bye bye.
Dad.
After that call, I reach my dad's new social worker, and she tells me that some weeks ago my dad stopped his medicine. The first time in years. She tells me that he just met with his psychiatrist. Then the next day, my dad's gone missing. Where would Duncan go? He walked along the shoulder of the road, the way a flea moves through a dog's fur. This new city terrified him, and it terrified him because he had no place in it. I'm going to Los Angeles to try to find my dad.
Dad? Richard? Dad?
Step-Up tells me that they can't talk to me about my dad, even off camera.
I wanted to talk to them about my dad, about the fact that he's missing and not taking his medicines, or even just missing. And they said that my release form for my dad has expired 3 months ago. And I didn't even know that that release form expired. He's been missing. He's off his medicines and he's been missing for about 3 days. You're kidding. 2 or 3 days. And I wondered about him too.
He hasn't been in here.
Okay.
No.
Does he have a mental disorder?
Yeah.
Okay, then, so you should actually file a police report. You go to the station to file it.
Richard! Dad!
Hey, Richard! Richard Ruskin!
Maybe he got on the flight.
Do you think he's...
Has he done this before?
Well, he used to do this one and come and see me, but that was years ago.
You never know.
I was wondering if we could talk more about what my dad said when he gave you the Bible and everything.
He told me he was going away. And I said, Richard, you're not going to commit suicide or anything, are you? And he didn't answer that, I know.
He hasn't, so don't worry. I don't think he's going to. Sometimes he has those thoughts, but I'm hopeful that's not what's going on.
I'm going to see Leslie. She's just had surgery. I have my dad's advance directive, and we start calling the hospitals he said he would prefer.
She is his daughter.
I wondered if a Richard Rustin was admitted. She goes, that's confidential. I can't tell you. I can't direct your call. This is Dr. Rustin. I'm trying to find my father, Richard Rustin, to see if he's been hospitalized in the psych ward, and they won't give me last name Rustin, R-U-S like in Sam, T-O-N.
Leslie's daughter arrives, saying my dad finally called.
Okay, but he says he's in Vegas, and he may be back Friday, but he was very frantic and not hearing anything. He said he was just rambling.
My prediction is that he either has enough that he can get back on the bus here and he'll be back here tomorrow, like he said, or he will be picked up by the police and taken to the crisis emergency room for psychiatric care and be hospitalized for probably a week.
As I fly home, Dad is leaving messages at his nephew's house.
Well, my brother's his Uncle Dick. I'm in Las Vegas, thinking I was Seattle flu. Listen, don't tell anyone, for God's sake, about where Delaney is or what her phone number is. And tell Leslie not to do it either. 904. You don't tell anybody Delaney's name, rank, serial number, or address or phone number. She is sweet.
All of a sudden I just got this call. Isn't that amazing? And he said, I have bad news. And I thought, well, you just don't ever expect it. I thought he meant, oh, he disappeared again or, something. And because my dad hadn't really ever tried to commit suicide or just didn't talk that much about it.
I think it was like 3:30 in the morning. I decided to go down the pier. And then your dad came along. And he turned around, and for that brief moment, it just overcame me. And I knew what was going to happen. You just get those feelings. And Seth ran over and tried to grab him, but he couldn't hold him, so he fell in the water. And Seth took off running. He was treading water, looking at me, and he was smiling. And so I told him to stop where he was, and he was just looking at me, just treading water, and he was smiling at me. But then he took his hands and he pushed himself into the water, so he used the water.
My dad's death was more painful than I could have ever imagined. I thought I'd never stop crying. I kept reading his novel, not wanting to let go. I couldn't stop obsessing about Dad's death. I kept calling his residents, his psychiatrist, everyone involved, asking how, why. Dad had told me during our last phone call that he needed to be hospitalized, but I learned he told his psychiatrist that he didn't want to be hospitalized. His doctor urged him to go to the hospital because he saw how paranoid Dad was. But since Dad didn't mention suicide, under the law, there was nothing his doctor could do. He didn't have Dad's advance directive. I wonder if it would have made a difference. I can only hope so. With time, I've come to realize that there's a lot about Dad's life and death that I'll never understand, but that my journey to understand our relationship will be ongoing. I focus on the gift of those 2 years with Dad, feeling so lucky that I got to appreciate him in a new way. His kindness, his intelligence, and that I got to experience him as a grandpa, as a friend, and as a father. And I think about how we had that time together because good community care, I saw, is truly possible. What if the promises of the 60s to make community care widely available were to actually come true? How many dreams could be realized? And how much suffering could be prevented? And how many people could avoid becoming unlisted?
To learn more about Unlisted, a story of schizophrenia, meet the filmmaker, or locate resources in your community, visit www.unlistedfilm.com. Unlisted, a story of schizophrenia, is available on home video for $19.95 plus shipping. To order a copy of this program online, please visit www.unlistedfilm.com.